Hello YouTube members. We're pretty excited to share this with you because it's been a long time in the making, and your support, which we're grateful for, and your feedback has helped shape the channel and also the data and the delivery and what we're doing. And this is the next incarnation of sharing that data with you. So we really want to show you that data and how we're presenting it and the reports, what they mean, why they're useful, how we use them, and how they might be useful to you as well. So we're going to have a look at a page, a demonstration of the page that you see. We'll get rid of OBS. You don't need to see that because what we're after is what it looks like. What it looks like for you. So this is when you log in, you've got the link. There will be a new URL, which you'll see at the top here. So I'll be using that one. And you click go, log in, you'll get the same disclaimer. No, it's not advice, you understand that. Keeps compliance happy. We all understand what's going on there. This is information, and we're all momentum traders. We'll do our own research because that's part of what we love. Now, what you see here is the really exciting part. This is part of your feedback right coming through in the sense that you've told us, look, I really just want it all in one list. I want one list and I want to be able to look at that. So this is the list, and they're interactive on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, to update the data on the left-hand side. So you can slice and dice it how you like. To understand the slicing and dicing, we're going to go through some of the other reports so that you can understand what these different selections do and how they help filter the data. Now, we also have received some questions from members saying, look, what do we do with the reports? How do we access them? Yes, you go to the web page, type in the password, click on the disclaimer, and away you go. This is the report that members get access to through the web page at about 2 o'clock every day. So before I put my trades on the afternoon, I check this data. That's why it comes out at about 2. There's enough volume in the information and information in the price that helps me understand how I'm updating my trades. Now, you just choose the date on the left. We've particularly narrowed this date down and kept it to this date because of how outstanding the data is. At a later stage, we'll show you why. But it's a little out of date, but that's for a reason. Simple and straightforward. Momentum rank for the day, the code, the company name, the momentum score. The momentum score is the key here. Look how high these momentum scores are, really high. Quite often we can get not even first place at 39. So that's part of the reason what we're looking at here. Weekly performance, rank and performance, quarterly rank, quarterly performance, days since hitting the launch pad. This one's been in there 15 days. 45 is the max. So DTR and SRL have been in there a very long time, and so too has Peak Minerals. Days since hitting the launch pad and return since hitting the launch pad. Straightforward. These are reports that some of you have asked questions about because you wanted to see the top 3 of 3. So a lot of you do trade in the top 300 and say, I just want to know which sectors are performing the best. I want to be in the best performing sectors. Gary consistently talks about that in his reports, so this is where they are. Click on the date, ranks, updates the rankings of the sectors. Okay, real estate's number 1. I choose real estate, and there I go. I'll make sure I've got it in the momentum score or rank, either one. Highest momentum score, Goodman, ranked number 1 for the ASX 300 in property. Centre Group, GPT Group, so on. Next one, the next report, fundamentally strong momentum leaders. You will not be surprised to see which one comes out the top. Drone Shield, DRO, ranked number 1 for momentum in the top 300. Similar thing to this report that we saw on Monday. This is the launchpad perspective. So you've asked us and said which sectors are the strongest on the launchpad. If we look at the ASX 300, we then rank them all in their launchpad metrics, and then find the top 3 companies within it. So we can just get a gauge. Oh, okay, well, what does a leader within that group look like? Bang, there's the chart. So choosing the date once again. Second is the most recent one for this little subset that we've chosen of dates. Rank them by momentum score. Number 1, Grain Corp for consumer staples. We can choose utilities or energy and just tick the boxes. Actually, there we go, ranking. Utilities 1, consumer staples 2, energy number 3. So you can change it and filter it just to get a quick idea of how the market's performing, how the sectors are ranked, and which companies within the sectors are leading that group. Here's a list that you're familiar with. We do get questions on it, so we're just going to run through the headings so that everyone's across it. The most recent date, I've chosen that on the left-hand side. Momentum rank, code, company name, straightforward. Here's what's important. This momentum score is huge, 77. That's really high, 55, 54, and you see it drop off down to 25. This is important, and we're going to have a look at this in a second. But we've left it at this date because this is a really strong report. In the last 12 months, this is strong. Just to cover the headings for the others who ask, weekly performance rank, that's based on the percentage gain in the last week. Excuse me. Quarterly performance rank, based on performance return in the last quarter. Days since hitting the top 30 momentum, well, that's the list over here, and they can come in and out, but within the last 45 days, we want to know, well, when did it first come in? 45 days ago, MTM hit it. So it's consistently been in there. Some of our reports, we looked at that in more detail, so you've probably seen that before. 45 days, we'll cover that maybe in another level because we've done a whole lot of data and that's important. That's why we look at that 45-day range. Days since hitting the launch pad, similar sort of thing to before. Range since hitting the return since the launch pad. Now imagine there's a segregation in here. We just couldn't fit the two reports in. We ran out of space, real estate on the page. So this just corresponds to the rank on the far left-hand side. Launchpad code, AGY, company name, straightforward. We don't have the same metrics because it's less useful to do the same metrics for the Launchpad. This is where it's really insightful. So that's the Thursday report, the 30/30, and thank you for the request. We love getting them because it helps us gauge what you're looking at and then the chat and conversation that you have in between with each other. Yes, I'm really trading MTM. Oh, I'm seeing the breakout. Have you seen the latest news? That's really supporting good community. So really love that you're doing that. Now, if I click on this report, fundamentally strong. Launchpad leaders, last time we looked at momentum, we can see mineral resources. They've actually been a really good trade. Have been under the 200-day, and once they got over the 50, really nice, and we saw that in Friday's video. So super interesting, really do like that list. This is where we look back at those momentum scores. So we're going to compare them against previous observations. Just to remember, 77 was the top one for the Thursday report, so the Launchpad, the 30/30 list I should say. But the date that corresponds through the data, we've got 68, 67, 64. So there's some really high performing ones down to 39. When we looked at the optimal scores, today is the green line with the green dot. So that's how today's momentum scores rank against all the other observations for the last year, which we've collected. And then we've plotted them. We're going to look at the distributions in a second for those who love statistics. I really love statistics, but this is apparently the easiest way to observe it. We just want to know from a Jesse Livermore perspective, because he said there's a time to be bullish, time to be bearish, and a time to go fishing. Is it a time to go fishing? For me, that's cycling and surfing. When I see the data and I see this line, I know straight away I'm not going to put my trades on. I'm not going to wait around after 2 o'clock for the report. I'm going to go do something else because this is not my time to shine. This is not when I lean into my trades. Can't be on all the time. We need to know when's time to harvest. Optimal trading conditions, and that's why this desert flower is in the background, because it needs the optimal conditions for it to bloom, and it can go for years without blooming. So the green dotted line is today. The worst observation that we picked out of the data is this blue, light blue line, 27th of September 2022. And that's this over here, this little arrowhead. That color matches up, corresponds. That was the worst observation that we had in many years. Now this is back to March 20 lows, the COVID lows, lockdown into the COVID highs, and then the volatility that ensued afterwards. You might remember if you were momentum trading, this was a beautiful time to be trading. There were so many breakouts, huge VCPs, thematics, sectors just running hot. Did it coincide with the ASX XJO peaking? No. That's a critical point, and I didn't realize it until I did the data myself, that the correlation was much lower than I expected for momentum trading opportunities on the ASX. This is a critical part because there's a huge divergence there, and that's where the opportunity is, and that's what this chart identifies for us. You want to be able to call up 10 other momentum traders and say, are you heavily invested right now? I've only got 10% of my portfolio in there, 10% invested. I feel off. Gary will quite often talk about that. And on note, I've noted that quite often when he's lightly invested, that's kind of what the blue, this is what we're close towards this blue line on the observations of those days. Or you say, should I be taking these trades? I want to know when I should be cheating. Gary talks about cheating, early entries, taking the breakouts and moving my profit target from 2.25 or 2.5 for half the position much higher. Do I want to wait a little bit longer to sell into heat? All of those variables, there's actually data to it, and that's what we've collated, and that's what we're putting in here. So those things of knowing when to lean in or when to ease back or when to go fishing or surfing, that's what this line tells us. Let's look at this hot pink line, because that is the best observation that we've seen on the ASX for years. Momentum trades were shooting the lights out, absolutely killing it. And anybody, do you remember that so many people took up trading, opening new accounts? The data for brokers, the number of new accounts was through the roof. The amount that they were paying for advertising was through the roof. We're looking at all this other metadata that helps us understand momentum. But then we've used that to then boil it back to the numbers, and this is what you're getting here. So there's a whole lot that's gone into this, but we've just boiled it down to this nice little dotted line. That pink period is this pink arrowhead here. Notice that it doesn't show when the market's peaking up in the orange. That's what we would have expected momentum opportunities to be at the best. It wasn't. That orange line is not much better than what we saw recently. It's kind of average. A little bit above, but close. So this hot pink line is very close to this purple line, or the arrowhead, I should say. There's 4 days difference between the two of them. Have a look. So pink line, 14th of March 2022. 4 days earlier, 10th of March, look where the line was. And you can see the worst observation on the best day. So the strongest momentum day on the ASX, 30th, ranked 30 on the momentum line, got a score of 104. Now in the last 12 months, we have not seen a score of 104 on the ASX at all. So that tells you we can really identify when the opportunities are to lean in or to ease back. And that's what we're looking for here. So this, I really love this, and I get so much out of it, and we want to share it with you. And if you've got questions, really send them through, because there is so much in this for momentum traders. There is a lot in that chart. Then we come through this because this is ranking the sectors. It's pretty straightforward. It's just ASX 300. You want to know how they're ranking. They're all mumble jumble of lines. You can change the dates. You can make them dynamic. That's fine. We can just push it out some more and extend it. And you can just see how consumer staples have plotted against the other ones, or however you want to do it. That's quite often, a lot of people just ask us, I want to know the leading sectors. So that's what's been put in there for you. Now here's the exciting part. This is the part that I love, because it builds off the back of knowing the optimal time to trade, which is that chart that we showed, the green dotted line, which should be this one here, optimal trading conditions. This one here, I really love this and spent so much time on it. We've got the code here. So let's go across in the headings. We've got the codes, we've got the latest price, because I like to filter. You might have picked up Gary and I don't trade under 50 cents, or rarely do. We've got the momentum score. You're familiar with that. Here's the launchpad count under 30 in the last 30 days. We've got some recent data on this, so I'll share it more in time. But in the last 30 sessions, trading sessions, how many times has this company shown up on the launchpad? Optimally, what the data is showing so far, it's only about 2 times. When you see it 7 or 8 or 9 times, that's what Gary was talking about recently with uranium. It kept showing up, but there was failure to launch. That's interesting in itself. So you want to see it on the launch pad, but you don't want it to be there for long. You want it to bounce on out. So that's an insight. Here's another one, which is coils. So we talked about mineral resources on Friday. We talked about how it coiled up on the Thursday close. It had shot up to a recent high and then pulled back from the high with a couple of tight closes. So David Ryan, compression under the high, that kind of thing. That's what this math does. This identifies it. And we actually want the higher numbers. So 74, that's what we really like to see, the high numbers, because the data shows if you're ranked number 1 through to about 40 or 50, you don't actually perform as well thereafter. So ranked 40 to 70, that's the sweet spot. That's what we really want. And that's why you can filter on the right. We'll come to that in a second. Greater than the 50-day moving average, that's just a binary on-off filter. I like to trade things over the 50 days, so does Gary. So that's just an easy way to narrow down our list. Here's another one. Some people like to know whether it's within 2% of the 63-day high. That's a nice filter. Some people like to know and just trade those and filter, okay, who's reading the high right now? I just want to look at those coming into the close. Where are we? 3-day compression. What we're looking at there is the 10-day, the 20-day, and the 50-day moving averages. Are they really close to each other? That's that coil again. It's another way of identifying the coil, because if you've had that breakout like mineral resources and then the little tight compression, you're going to see it show up in the coil here. However, if you're seeing a VCP and it's contracting sideways and the volatility is narrowing, that's more likely to show up in the 3-day moving average compression. Sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but you'll really see the difference in the opportunities here. And then we've had a lot of people ask us, well, look, I really just want the IBD RSI. Can you tell me? Because Kalamagi only looks at things over 98 or 90 or whatever you want to filter it to. We created that one too. We don't use it personally, or I don't, is because you lose so much information by standardizing the data. There's so much more information in the momentum score over here. But hey, if that's what you want, then for the day, that's a filtering mechanism if you want. So, and then the date's just there from a data perspective. So let's just say for the last few days, we want to only look at companies that have been really high, sort of in the top 5% of market. So there you go. You've just filtered your list down. For the last 3 days, you're only looking at the top 5% of momentum trades on the ASX, and here they all are. You're going to see the code there multiple times because CHN has been in that list 3 times. If you want to narrow it, just change your dates. But you might also want to say, well, I want those optimal coils that you were talking about, like the David Ryan compressions. Where are they? We know that the optimal period is sort of 40 to 75. Give me that data, please. And then you narrow it down. So we've got all the highest coils here, rank them, but we're going to see everything over rank 40 or higher. So we've got these 2 filters going on at the same time. Now tell me, I want it to have been in the launchpad at least once. So then tell me that. And I'm going to update the list. So then we'll see number of launchpad in the last 30 days. We're going to see no zeros in there. So everything has been in the launchpad at least once. So now we're filtering and narrowing that list down. Closing price, well, I'm not as tight. I'm happy to go with something that's 20 cents. So let's broaden our list a little bit more. So you got your closing price that you're adjusting, your momentum score that you're able to work with. Actually, I want something that's over 15. So give me that. So now we're narrowing that filter, we're twisting it around a little bit. The launchpad count that we talked about, well, data says that the higher the number, it's not looking so great. The probability of it hitting quarterly strong movements or a monthly rise and being a market leader is not so good. So if it's been in the launchpad more than 5 times, don't want to know it. So suddenly you've got a much smaller list. You've filtered it down and you've got your way. Now we're coming to these compressions. Well, actually, I just want to know if it's right near the 63-day high. There we go. So yeah, they're actually near the 63-day. So the quarter high, we're near the quarterly high. And that's to be expected because of quarterly RSI. So there's a good correlation there, but that's how you can filter it. Tell me, well, there's nothing that's in that 3-day moving average compression as you'd expect with a high quarterly RSI. So if we broaden this out to maybe 70, we might get some inclusion. No, it's still not there. But with all of this filtering, you just turn them on and off. But I only want to know if it's over the 50-day moving average. Well, actually, everything that meets this criteria is 50-day moving averages equal to or above. So that's what this list is doing. Then I take this list, I put it on another screen, and I punch in the codes, and I just punch through in Iris and look through my list. That's how we use this list. We'd love to get your feedback on how you're using this, how you'd love to see it adjusted, what you'd like to know more about. And if you've got questions on the momentum profile, this is the more of the data side of things to help explain this chart here, the optimal trading conditions. So momentum profile, we're calculating a certain number based on every single day of the ASX. How strong is the momentum for that day? The reason we kept that data that we were talking about back to that date is because that day was actually not better than 99% of all other observations we've had for over the past 12 months. What that looks like, well, we make it the orange dotted line. So the top left chart here is orange dotted line, and that just marks horizontally where the latest observation is, right here. You can see that's really high. So there aren't many other dates that are above this orange dotted line. In fact, about 1.25%. There's a rounding in here. We've put that on purpose. So there aren't many observations above it. Below it is 99% of the observations thereabouts. Well, what does that look like? If we're climbing a mountain and each day is a stake that how high it is up the mountain, how good is that momentum to get you up the hill? And then the highest that day gets, we just put a stake in the ground, like you're doing long jump and they put the stick in the sand to measure it. We're going to put all of those pegs on the mountain. And what you're going to see, if you see the side of the mountain, you're going to see all these pegs in here. And that's why the line is a little bit squiggly, because they're real observations. And you're going to see, well, where we are today, that's where it lines up with this vertical line. So we're better than 99% of all other observations we've had. 99% of the attempts to climb the mountain so far. We're really high up there. That's what this tells us in climbing the mountain. If we were to do it on a distribution, where do we see the bulk of the observations? Well, the majority are falling around sort of this bulky bit here. That's why you can see the blue vertical lines, the light blue ones, they're actual observations. It's a smooth dark blue line for the curve, and you can see once again the orange dotted line tells us where the current observation is. So 99 or 99%, and we're way up here. That's how high we are up the mountain. And how rare is it for us to be up here? Well, there are only these few other observations out here that have been higher. For those who like standard deviations and understand that kind of data, that's what the dotted lines are, the light pink and the light grey. One standard deviation from the mean is the light grey. So you'll see if you draw this top left chart and put an average, it's going to be halfway between these two grey dotted lines in the middle here. Or it's going to be sort of the peak of this curve, which is halfway between these grey dotted lines. And we can continue that up halfway between these grey dotted lines, about halfway up the mountain. You getting the idea here? So back to Jesse Livermore, a time to be long, a time to be short, and a time to go fishing. For me, time to go fishing is kind of everything to the left. I don't trade short as well as Gary does, so that's not really my specialty. It's not my edge. So I know maybe I adjust the long-term portfolio a little bit, but that's what's happening on the left-hand side here. On the right-hand side, that's when I get interested. That's when things get really, really good. So once we're one standard deviation out, I know, okay, cool, I'm starting to lean into these trades. I really like this. I'll take more opportunities. I'll be more than half invested in the market, that kind of thing. Then this pink dotted line, that's 2 standard deviations. That's where things are getting really, really interesting. That's where I want to be taking my setups. That's where I want to know. So we're above this pink dotted line up here, we're beyond this pink dotted line. So our orange dotted line is to the right of this pink dotted line, which we are. Same thing out here. I am going to take my cheats. I'm going to take my early starts. If there's a breakout, I'm going to get in there and I want to get set really fast, really quickly. What am I going to do with my profit targets? Well, I won't sell half my position out at 2.5R. If I've got long positions and the market starts turning back in and falling back down here, I'll trim my positions in the sense that if I'm looking for a 2.75R, I might bring it back to a 2.25. I will be taking my profits earlier. I will be tighter on my stops when the market's down here. My stops will be creeping up faster, but I'm probably going to be exceeding profit targets when I'm 2 standard deviations or more beyond the normal observations. That's what this is telling me. This is telling me how to adjust my trading because of the market conditions. And as we learned before, it is not what the index is doing. As momentum traders, it doesn't mean anything to us. Who cares what Commonwealth Bank and BHP are doing if I'm trading Liontown Resources and Mineral Resources and maybe some uranium stocks that are outside the ASX 300? They've got no bearing whatsoever on what's happening on the index, but they move the needle on my portfolio massively. So that's what this is telling us. This tells me when to lean into the trade, when to adjust my profit targets and extend them a little bit more, or when to tighten them up, when to tighten up my stops, when to reduce my risk exposure. When Gary was talking about he builds up to a 20% position in his portfolio, 20% of capital, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be doing that less than 1 standard deviation above. I just wouldn't take those positions. I'd definitely be looking for any opportunity I could for if we're above the pink, sort of where we were on this day, because I know the favor. If I'm running that hard and I've got the opportunity to lean into it, the chances are the likelihood of me hitting profit target are way up there. And how rare is that? Well, look at the few number of observations above the current dotted line or even the top pink dotted line. So that's what we're looking for. That is a momentum trader. That's what I look for. Otherwise, I know he's back. I'll book in lunches. I'll do more social things. I'll go for a surf. I'll have other business meetings, or I'll crunch some more data. That's how I'll spend my time, as opposed to being on the tools and being on the screens. When to lean in, when to ease back. That's hopefully what we're doing with this beta version. Share with us your questions. Share with us your feedback. What would you like to know more of? What would you like to know more about? And, well, we're going to have this until September. So we'll have this trial version of the beta and the feedback. And hopefully we'll add some tweaks and make it a little bit better. but that's only going to be with your support. And we thank you for your support, and your feedback is most critical because it's really helping shape this and get you the data that you want. Again, it's not personal advice, compliance, so this is just the data and research from the market. Okay, thank you very much for that. And I'll bring OBS back up here so I can look at the camera. And we'll shut this down, we'll go to publish, and we'll make sure you've got the passwords and the access to this website. Thanks very much.